Alright, so this is our second go at explaining culture and diffusion. One of you had requested that I go back through diffusion real quick, so we're going to do a quick review. So to start off with, when we talk about culture, there's a handful of ideas we need to talk about. And I'm actually going to start in the middle of a slide on this. Okay, so a cultural hearth is the area where a cultural trait starts and from which it diffuses. Okay. Not all traits have a single hearth, and when we have the same trait that develops in multiple places, like say agriculture, then each hearth operates as a case of independent invention. Okay. Cultures themselves have a discrete combination of traits. So you might find the same trait in many cultures, but you'll never find the same combination of traits in many cultures. It's what makes each culture unique. Alright, so with that then, we have really two kinds of diffusion. We've got expansion diffusion, and then we've got contagious diffusion. Okay? And this diffusion, really think of it as how places are connected to each other, okay, or how an idea moves from one place to another. So expansion diffusion occurs when an innovation or idea develops in the hearth, stays strong at the hearth, but also spreads outwards. Think of the English language as being a case of expansion diffusion, right? It starts in Britain, spreads outwards from Britain during the colonial period, and continues to this day, even though it's the widely most spoken language in the world, it continues to stay strong in Britain. Okay, so English is a great example of expansion diffusion. Contagious diffusion, on the other hand, is a type of expansion diffusion in which nearly all of the adjacent individuals or places are affected. And so the example that the person who wrote this slide came up with are a phenomenon called silly bands. And I don't know if you remember silly bands, but in essence they were bracelets that when you got them came in the shape of various animals or dinosaurs or things like that. And typically what would happen is one person in an area would get some maybe as a present or something like that, and then all of their friends thought they were cool, and so then their friends got them, and then all of their friends thought they were cool, and so they got them. So it starts at a single point and spreads outwards to everybody. Okay. Hierarchical diffusion, on the other hand, is a pattern in which the diffusion occurs through some segment or some group who are susceptible to adopting what is being diffused. So you could think of this as they give Crocs, the guys who wrote this slideshow. So Croc shoes start out and they spread first to people who work maybe outdoors, right, gardeners and things like that, who need comfortable shoes. I personally, when I think of hierarchical diffusion, tend to think of things like the iPhone, right? The first people to go out and go buy the iPhone are always the ones who are the most susceptible to wanting spiffy, cool new technology. After that, then we get our later adopters, right? So it kind of spreads down the hierarchy as those first folks get them and they think they're cool and they try them out and they help them work out all of the kinks and things like that. Then it spreads outwards from there. So it's kind of like, I like to think of hierarchical diffusion as being kind of like a triangle, and it starts at the top of the triangle and spreads downwards from there and spreads out from there. Okay. Stimulus diffusion is an idea that not all ideas can be readily or directly adopted by the receiving population, but these ideas can still have an impact. Okay, when we talked about this in class, what we talked about is McDonald's in India. Okay, you know, another example of this would be one of the high schools up in Anchorage where I grew up. Right, Anchorage is a relatively cold place for much of the year. And one of the high schools was originally designed with outdoor hallways. kind of like they have in California, where it's a bunch of separate discrete buildings and you just walk outside on pathways from one building to the other, which is great when the coldest the temperature gets on a really cold day is, 50 degrees. In Anchorage, the coldest the temperature gets on a really cold day is like 30 degrees below zero. So the idea of the outside hallways is a great idea. What they ended up having to do was that they blast them in. Okay, so you still get this wide open, not really wide open, but you get the feeling of the wide open, right? But you don't get the actual wide open because you want to be able to stay warm as you're going from place to place, right? So you get the idea you can still see everything, but you also get that you can stay warm. They adapt it to that specific place, and that's the way stimulus diffusion works. You take an idea and you adapt it to where you're at, and you adapt it to how the situation is where you're at. Okay. Relocation diffusion is a separate thing altogether. Okay. So expansion diffusion, things spread outwards from a given point. Relocation diffusion, things hop over and around. Generally speaking, it occurs through migration. All right, when people physically get up and move from one place to another and carry the idea or the innovation with them, where they then proceed to disseminate it or to spread it out. Okay. So we could think of this relocation diffusion, for instance, with the Catholic Church in South America, right? During the colonial period, when Spain was in control of South America, we actually see monks, sometimes nuns, mostly monks. We see Catholic individuals basically moving from Spain into Central and South America, and then converting the native peoples to Catholicism and spreading that religion that way. That's relocation diffusion. Okay. That's the end of our quick review. Hopefully it helped you out. If you still have questions, please by all means feel free to come see me during class or let me know, and I'd be delighted to do what I can to help you understand it.